Hi, welcome to the third and final Google Hangout at the Learning Technologies Summer Forum. If you've watched any others, thank you very much for coming back. If this is a brand new experience, hey, sit back and enjoy it. So you've got the opportunity to ask questions. Any question you ask, I will make sure that our speaker will answer those questions. So we can really have a little bit of a dialogue. And I'm so pleased today in my final Hangout to introduce Sharon Claffey Kaliouby. Sharon knows a lot about global learning and development programs. So thanks for coming along, Sharon.
You're welcome.
And the basic context for this Hangout is that the theory, maybe, or maybe the practice, that more and more organizations are going global. And what they're not doing is rolling stuff out separately in different parts of the world, but picking up one initiative, one program, and going global, rolling it out in many different countries and many different continents. Do you think that's true? And if you do think it's true, what are the problems and issues around it?
I absolutely think it's true. And a big problem, briefly, that I would say is one size does not fit all. So you absolutely have to go global, but there's a saying, go global, think local. And that is getting the regional buy-in for what you're creating, and to not create it with the mindset of one region and expecting it to be accepted everywhere, but to create it with the mindset of all the regions where appropriate, and then making sure that you regionalize whatever component, and that could be the blend around it, or it could be the technology that you use that is an ability to have the foundational level be very global with that regional mindset, and then really deep diving in the areas that you need to.
Yeah, so I've always thought that the best thing you can do is almost co-create, that what you don't want are people deviating from the message, but what you do want is people saying, that won't work like that, but it could work like this.
Exactly. Yeah, and almost getting the buy-in of the key stakeholders from that region.
Yes.
So you're not telling them what they're thinking. They're letting you know what's happening there within their business. Yeah. And from that, you can fine tune and collaborate with the learning instructional designers or that folks. But I would look at the stakeholders, find out the business issue of that region, and being able to resonate in that, even if it is different globally. Yeah. You can reference the fact that in this program, there's going to be differences, and people want to know what's going on. Yeah. I mean, that's the value to doing global, is like, wow, in Asia, they're dealing with this, and the United States, it's here. And even within regions, it might look a little bit different.
Sure, and well, Europe, for example, what goes on in Holland, it usually will definitely not go on in Belgium, right. Will really annoy the French, and the Germans won't get any of that stuff, and the UK won't accept any of the others, or any of the others. So that there are local differences as well as big, continental differences between Asia and Africa, Europe and North America, for example. So let's just talk from your experience. There are people there going, well, I've got to do this. Give us some hints and tips. Tell us some practical stuff.
I think it's neat the way that you said even regionally it varies. Well, I would even say within languages, common languages, you get the worst disasters. So English language is common in, say, Ireland and the UK and the United States. Well, you get a different dialect and meaning from New York City to California, never mind just from the areas there. So tip number one is, regardless of the language, be super careful about it. Almost more careful in regard to if it's the English language, because there's just certain things you don't say, they have different meanings. And that's something that's usually assumed as, oh, that's easy, we'll just make it the same there. Yeah. The stakeholder buy-in, once again, I'll say that alignment to business goals and strategies of those. People are going to be a little uncomfortable with that. They want training, which I hate that word, but training versus a learning solution. And then if it's a true learning solution that's going to be effective, it's really a business solution. So making the mindset that you need to educate the stakeholders as well as those that you're collaborating with. And then checking in, looking to see if you're getting the right solutions. Are you going in the right direction almost as it's being produced with these key people? Worst thing you could do is bring in new people as it's being developed. I think you would kind of even see the understanding of that. Too many cooks in the kitchen, yes, ruin it. Yes. But keeping those that you initially spoke with apprised of your situation leads to a great pilot and then a super rollout.
Yeah, they're really good insights. And that idea that you're working with a team locally and you think that's fine, everyone's happy. What you're missing is the stakeholders, the people who can look at that and say, I didn't approve this. Why does it take this long? Who said she can go here or he can do this? Right. So you've got to manage that very carefully. Right. So there's some egos that need to be massaged. You need to get generic approval at this level
Right.
before you can do the work down at that level. That's true. And the other thing about translation, that, you know, I was working in the Middle East, so my stuff was translated into Arabic, and I just happened to have a very, very good translator who was working with me on the day, and she said, let's look at the slides in Arabic. So she went through, and she stopped at a slide and said, what did you mean by this? And I said, well, it's culture, you know, organizational culture. That's not what it says in Arabic. It was a completely different word. Whoever translated it misunderstood, and she said, if you said what you're saying and that word was on the screen, there'll be total confusion. So attention to detail.
Yeah,
it's actually worth sitting with someone, translating it back to you, and you listen to the words, because, you know, words nuanced, it's very difficult.
Right.
It's not so simple as just put it through Google Translate.
And having a process to this, I'm not trying to market for anyone, but Interactive Services actually has a place in their process where they say heads will roll. So who are the key people that heads will roll in the understanding of it, making sure that not only culturally from a regional perspective, but culturally from a corporate perspective, are you saying the right thing here? And that was really enlightening to me, to be in this process of what I thought was just a mechanical, you go here, you collect your information, you go, wait a minute, heads will roll. So we actually had legal review it 3 times because it was something that was going to live outside as well as inside. And that was a heads will roll stage. I don't know. I guess you could do HW roll R, right? Almost like a CAO, cover your grass, you know, CYA.
HWR. It's HWR, guys.
Heads will roll.
And you need to know when you've reached the HWR stage.
Right,
like.
for many different.
Yeah, from many reasons and in many different contexts. But there's a point where HWR, get ready. It's all
Comes
true.
right after CYA.
Yes.
We won't say that one.
It's true. So the other thing that struck me when you were talking was that you need to treat people with respect. And one of the biggest failures I've encountered are programs that aren't badly translated, are kind of made to work, but the attitude is you will do this and we don't care and just get used to it, suck it up. And I've actually heard that word used, that expression used by an American to people from a non-American culture. You're just going to have to suck it up. That went down like the proverbial lead balloon, totally insensitive.
Right.
So you've got to be really aware of the people you're going to do. Hey, make some friends.
Right.
Making friends actually saves you time and trouble. It's not a damn nuisance.
Well, and if you make it good enough, my thing is to not make it required. And if you make it that good, people will feel like they're being left out if they don't get to see it. So you want to leave them wanting more, keep it concise. If you do all your homework, you shouldn't have to make something that's really good, compliant, or have them suck it up. If it's not good enough, get them involved. What is good enough? You know, much better to have people wanting it because they feel as though they're missing out. And that takes probably 3 times as much energy and people to make that work. But the overlasting is once you buy them in for that, they're usually more likely to get involved with the other programs.
So that effort in getting people comfortable, making sure that they want it and understand the reasons for it, actually pays you back down the line, even though it's not part of the project plan. You know, get it out, get it translated, get it this, get it that. Well, there's a whole way of operating, I guess, that is likely to engender success or likely to engender failure.
Well, that's a good one, the success. What I would put with every project, and once again, business people are not going to be comfortable seeing this coming out of the learning solution area, but you want your business goal. I think, you might have told me this way back, but business goal and criteria of success. Have that listed out. Like we did that for an onboarding program. And people get lost and they try to make it everything for everyone, which you warned me about. And the really cool thing is with the business goal, well, your stakeholders see it very clearly. And then once they say it's good, people don't challenge it as much. Criteria of success is if you don't know where you're headed, you might end up somewhere totally different. It might be great. I think there was a Franklin Covey thing years ago. It was like climbing the ladder to success. You get to the top and you find out you're on the top of the wrong building. You're supposed to be over there with your team. But absolutely critical. And put that on every email, every document, even if it's in the corner so that they all know where you're headed. So when you get there, it's like shooting pool or something. Like they'll know you're going for the corner pocket and it's not an accident. And when you get there, there's even more success. So that's key.
I'm with you. So when you're looking for your success criteria, it's not 50, it's 4 or 3, so that everybody can remember them. Everybody will know when you've reached them, and everybody can pat themselves on the back and feel rewarded. If you've got 40, you're not going to meet 10 of them. So you're setting yourself up for failure. But that's when everyone wants to get in and have their say. Someone's got to be disciplined and say, hey, let's be realistic about what we can achieve.
Right. And getting that senior learning person to be able to organize that and then become the communicator makes the global rollout that much better. And that everybody has to feel as though they're being treated equally. It can't be something from headquarters. It can't be something that one of the offices just thought they'd do, and, cowboy or do it on their own. If it's really concerted correctly, like a symphony orchestra, and they're like telling people where to go, when to do it, and then the end result is something everyone accepts. That's key, is knowing that you have that person. So
there's a lot of communication in here, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Awful lot of communication, much more than you might expect, and much more than you would need to do. If you're working locally in an environment where everyone knows everyone else, everyone understands the criteria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Is that true?
It's incredibly true. And what you have to do, and the reason I'm over here in the UK, is take the mission to go out and make sure you're checking in with everybody, everywhere. You can't always travel to do that. It will, face-to-face will save you about 3 years of frustration. When you can fit it in, the budget's worth it. But get on the phone, get that agreement across the board, and capture it. You may need to feed it back to folks. What's the current situation? What's the situation desired? Get that communicated back. Show there's a process to it, and show that it's a global process.
Yes.
Once again, don't piss off people because they won't know the names or who the key folks are. And it does take effort, but once you do it, it's worth it.
There's another big word I want to mention, the C word, which is context. But if you understand the context, because you were the originator often, they don't necessarily understand the context. So there's a big issue about setting the context so that people understand why and what the purpose is, and they understand the reason why it's necessary.
Well, exactly. It's when you instructionally design something, the context to the content, that was, I think, the origins of blending learning. Mm-hmm. People didn't get it. And then the other thing, like, content is king, experience is queen. So making sure that the experience, so noting culturally, if 2 to 3 minutes, in New York City, 2 to 3 seconds, if you need to keep it at that pace to allure people, do different components within the overall learning solution. Yeah. I believe in Scandinavia, give time to reflect, embed that into the program, be aware, and put a little bit in it. And the neat thing is, explain it at the end even. Look, we designed it because we wanted to acknowledge. Don't make the mistake, which is very American to do, to sit an African-American, an Asian, a man, like they put all diversity in one scene at the same time, check, now we can do whatever we want. Like, it's even, everybody's noticed it, it's quite laughed at. But having different components blended in appropriately is perfect.
Yes, and also, there's an African-American worldview, there's an Asian worldview. Get a bit of that in there as well. A bit of,
it's better than a physical presence. Exactly. Although you need it, but you don't need it all at once.
That's exactly right. It's people's views and aspirations and how different they are from the traditional audience, not just the faces on the screen. Right. It's got to be more profound than that.
Absolutely. And if you do this well, you can impact the corporate culture. People are always looking at how can we change it? Well, do the right thing and culture will follow. It's usually something that, the chicken and the egg, it feeds into each other. Yeah. But if you take all these components in, people are going to look, it's going to be well accepted. And the, what was neat is we did a program and checked in with HR and made it so well. We spoke to the Asia HR people. We spoke to folks in the UK, Germany, and said, okay, we're doing it. If you want to take a look. Well, something that was initially designed for 250 salespeople in the US, this is in a past role that I had, all of a sudden became something that was rolled out to 17,000 because it made sense, because the work was done in the beginning and it was done from a global perspective.
Yes. Another C word, culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats L&D people for lunch.
It does.
You get that wrong and you're going to be squashed on.
It's scary. I don't know if there's any perfect example, because culture is the result of other stuff going on. So your only best bet and hope is if you do all these right components, the culture will see an impact, hopefully, and how to track that. I don't know. How do you track that?
Well, I suppose there are three things. One is that you can only track it when you know what it is you're tracking and what it is you're looking at. So you've got to identify the key components of the culture. And the best way to do that is not read a book that says, in Japan. It's to go and talk to the Japanese people in your company and say, how do you approach that? And what do you think about this kind of stuff? And is that going to work in your context? That's true.
That's funny, because I was told, the soles of your heel, and I had been involved in that culture, very connected through family, and I was I never heard that before. So some of it can be almost humorous
Yes.
if you get it wrong. I mean,
Yes.
I would love that. And outtakes of all the like cultural
The
mistakes,
faux pas.
what you shouldn't say when you're, that would be funny.
Yes. And in some ways, that might amuse everybody all around the world. If you did that, you admitted you're fallible, you make mistakes, that you get some things wrong.
I think that would be a great show reel. Maybe you guys can come up with that. That would be awesome.
Maybe we could. So culture takes time. And
It does.
therefore, one of the problems, I think, is that we need to roll this out globally tomorrow, yesterday. Not enough time to go from your 600 to 17,000. And the fact that the program is all ready doesn't mean it's all ready. It means that it's all ready for one particular circumstance.
Right.
It's not ready for lots of other circumstances. So how would you argue to be given more time and not, we've got to do it now? How do you make that case?
That's a great thing. Okay, so they want it yesterday, which is very typical. The best and ideal way to do it is whatever region, and go outside headquarters if you can. Please go outside headquarters, because if you don't, it's a great way to piss off people before you start. But say, well, yeah, we're ready to go yesterday. If it's done, let's pilot it in XYZ location. If there's a particular business, once again, check in, what's the overarching business issues and needs? If there's a particular pain point, or if you just know, hey, our second largest office is in London. And you know what, the response we get from that group, they give us great feedback. See if you can roll it out there first with a couple hundred people, or the office, whatever the size might be. Get that buy-in, and then by the time, usually headquarter people don't mind. Oh, great, it rolled out there, awesome, what did they think? However, if you don't pilot it and it flops, it's usually because it was too internally driven by whichever was the easiest location, not always headquarters, or there's a different appreciation than when you get it so that, whoa, that's cool that the EMEA or the folks in Germany or Asia gave their check to it. And it makes the senior folks feel as though, that's right, we're supposed to make sure we take care of that. It's much more successful when it goes around. And there are always mistakes, right? So you get to clean it up, and these people feel that much more. You're part of the solution. We're running it by you. Did we get it right? And if you get it wrong, it's even better when it's done because you changed it. Yeah. You didn't just roll it out and force it through.
You created ownership.
And suck it up, right?
Ownership. Exactly. Right. Exactly. So those kind of pilots, I could call them experiments. That's not only necessary, but it's an absolutely critical component, isn't it? Absolutely. Just because something was wildly successful in one place, the idea, it's kind of arrogant almost to imagine that it will work in another. So that's it's worth taking the time. It's essential to take the time and just get it right. It's almost like, it's not starting completely over again, but there's a big component of starting over again.
Right.
And just because it works in South Korea doesn't mean it will work in, somewhere around the corner in Indonesia or something like that. You go slow to go fast. I know that's an old saying, and you have to catch yourself sometimes even just to, okay, I got to take a second. What's the game plan? What's the business goal? If you can go back, what's the business goal? What's the criteria of success? And if you have it wrong, you change it. That's your mantra. That's gonna really support. Because if the business goal is to get to X, Y, Z, and if you race to get it out, you're not going to accomplish it. Yeah. Who cares? You won't get the business done. And the other thing I guess is that when you run the pilot, you don't run it yourself in South Korea. You get them to run it locally because then they own it, and then they'll be honest about the issues and problems. If you go out there and you run the program, usually what happens is you go, hey, it was fantastic. Everyone loved it. Everyone loved it because they're too polite to say this was a dog. And therefore you learn nothing. Well, engaging with champions too. Champions are going to be key. It's almost educate, engage, empower. That's what I like to use. So you're empowering these individuals and the region, eventually, hopefully, if you're creating it. But you have to first take the time to educate. Then with this engagement, those local champions are the key to success. It's just, you get, and if you have them as stakeholders or not, that can go the gamut. It doesn't really matter, and you can almost create a mentoring and sponsorship scenario. If you have a key stakeholder wanting it and you have a champion that's at a different layer and you connect the two, that's just way too good because you're going top and bottom up. Yeah, and you get more benefits than just getting that program sorted. Exactly. You actually make links and connections. Exactly. Mentoring, championing, and career development. And also, if you've got local champions. Look at that. We have a global learning program. We're going to get someone promoted. Easy. That's awesome. Sorry. Brilliant. No, it's true. But it's true though, isn't it? If you've actually done something really good locally, as well as the program, or in addition to the program, it's great. Benefits all around. But what I was going to say was that if you've got someone locally, that person takes ownership. And in some ways, all you need to do is point the finger and say, how are we doing in X? How are we doing in Y? How are we doing in Z? And therefore, you've got the responsibility is off you. You only deal with the problems. You can assume that unless something's going drastically wrong, then everything's going well. You don't have to be on top of it all.
No,
they will do it,
great.
and they own it, and they feel proud of the fact they own it, and they feel proud of the fact that you've trusted them, and they're getting credibility and kudos, and they're building better relationships with their CEO, whoever it might be. So all of these spin-off benefits are really great, and the opposite is also true, that if they feel they're disempowered, if they used to do good stuff and now it's being imposed by that woman in Boston, it drives them crazy. They feel bad about it, and therefore they're slightly resentful, therefore they don't try very hard, therefore they're really keen to celebrate failure rather than success.
Exactly.
She screwed it up really badly. So these are really important things, aren't they?
Right, and they leverage into the measurement area too, and that's the effectiveness, and actually being in worlds where there isn't always that measurement. There is figuring out what your metrics of measurement will be.
Yes.
Where can you get it, and make those champions and those stakeholders a component of the measurement. So you got to kind of suck it in. You will make mistakes. They will not always be the high metrics that you want, but you learn from that, and then you gain the better direction as to where to go. So accepting when it's not going well, what to do, adjustments, and then being courageous enough to stick to the business goals and the measurements of success, so you can illustrate, hey, this is the hole in one, or this is a home run. This is exactly what we meant to have happen. It's not accidental, and it's because of you. And I would say try to call it learning, but at least you should be in a support mechanism for the business, and then put the success on those stakeholders, because those are the people that will come to bat for you next time.
Yes, it's absolutely true.
So it's not yours, it's their success, because the business is improving.
And in the local context, that's true, isn't it?
It is.
And
it's
that's
100%
really
true.
To acknowledge it locally, to thank locally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not imagine this is all about your greater glory as you sit in your
and create some fun, do some awards around.
Yes.
We're doing short snippets of videos, and I'm dying to do like the Emmys of because they're just fabulous, really intelligent people sending messages out in 3-minute snippets. It's great. It's fabulous like that, and acknowledge and reward.
And when you get it right, you pull the whole organization together. Everyone feels great. Everyone feels like they're on the same team. Everything buzzes. But it's also a brilliant way of making the organization feel completely fragmented. They don't get it. They just don't understand the way we see the world. They don't acknowledge our contribution. They're really difficult to deal with. And you see the organization pulling apart rather than pulling together.
Absolutely.
So you should be conscious of those secondary benefits and see them as being really bangs for your buck. If you can engage the whole organization.
Absolutely.
You agree with me?
I 100% agree. I mean, this is where that chicken and the egg of the corporate culture come into play. If it's done well enough, and you personally, I mean, to get a little selfish here, you create an opportunity for career development.
Yes.
By connecting with these people, listening. The number one thing there is listen. If that's all you do, take a couple of weeks just to listen what's going on. Yes. That's going to define how well the global solution rolls out, and acknowledging that you're not aware of everything, and where could they help you. So it brings us back to success, and then the corporate culture flies from there.
It is. It's about having the right conversations and listening to what people say, not have the right conversations and just do what you're going to do anyway because, hey, they didn't really mean it, or I'm sure you could interpret what they said as being fully on board. And they said, no, we don't like this, it won't work. So all of that stuff is very important. So in some ways, you do need a kind of sensitization process for the people doing the delivery, don't you?
Right.
They need to be aware that this is a different ball game.
Right, and it's that target audience, you know. And I would funnel down on that globally. Is if you're dealing with sales folks globally, there's some commonalities, and they may not reflect what the rest of the organization looks at. So it just came to mind now, like, know what group you're targeting towards. If it's the entire population, partner with HR. If it's not, if it's within the business groups, you really have to figure out what that style is. What type of learners are they? Not even what age. Who cares in that sense? Are they much more visual? Do they absorb are they on the go? Do they need to get it in a certain technology? Then you start playing all those things globally. That's a big win right there.
And if they really care, you know, if you've convinced them that it's important and they want to do it, they're going to make it work. They'll iron out the kinks.
That's right. Or they'll help you do it.
Yeah.
Usually, hey, we have bandwidth issues here, but this is what we've done before.
Exactly.
Because you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
And let me give you 2 or 3 examples that work in an organization where it was just really expensive to subtitle or overdub the video. So they just did it in English. Everyone went with it. Their English wasn't terrible. They could make it out. It wasn't the end of the world.
Right.
So rather than delay everything, but they built a relationship where people wanted to make it work. So they would kind of make a little bit of an allowance for the fact that it wasn't perfect, it wasn't perfectly translated. That people would, another example, where people would get together in quite inconvenient locations because they really wanted to show solidarity and support for the program. That's really good, you know. And that wouldn't have happened unless someone had convinced them that this was a good thing to do.
Because then it's their program, you know, and that's rolling it out global, having that foundation because they know they're all getting the same. But then what do they do with it that regionalizes it?
Yes.
That's a key component right there.
And all the recognition is so important. You said that, but you know, you've got to thank people. You've got to recognize the size of the achievement. You've got to find your winners and give them something, you know, a rosette or a medal or even just
go to the stakeholders, send a note, say this person was key to the success of this.
You thank them?
You know, it's sometimes it's a pat in the back. Thank you very much. You know, that really mattered. That elevates quite a bit.
It does. And it's focusing on leaving behind something better locally. Not just going in like a white tornado, destroying everything and then disappearing. Right? But going in and leaving behind better infrastructure, better communication. Maybe people who didn't know each other now. And being proud of the fact that you've left something more resilient behind you when you move on. Because you will move on. It's not going to be the thing you'll do for the rest of your life.
Right.
But those people might be there for the rest of their life. You know. That's right. Think about them a lot.
So that, and the relationships and create communities from that and open dialogue. And if you can get groups to support that, then it maintains it. So you create it, it's successful, don't stop, you know, keep it going, stay in touch, make sure you make adjustments where necessary. If everyone's quiet because it's that good, check. You know, we had to check in and say, you know, we haven't heard, oh, well, it's really doing what we need. It's great. That time, make sure you check in. Don't leave it there.
I think that's so important, but don't say goodbye. You know, the last person goes through the last module. Bye, never see you again. Check in.
Check in,
say, hey, how's it going now? Keep the relationships.
Right.
You've built a global network, and yet often people just let it go.
Right.
3 months later, no one knows anyone. It's all
and leverage these learning solution global networks for other regions, other business solutions, other HR issues. You know, all of a sudden this becomes the go-to group. So I think that, and then when you need that learning solution yesterday, your infrastructure is already set. And it's so much easier to work from there.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. So you end up with the process of delivering this becomes a kind of learning journey for the people doing the delivery.
Right.
And that's, so, you know, you
and
can,
career, hopefully their career accelerates.
So rather than being, oh, I've got to do this in X place or Y place, that's going to be awful. It's actually something about getting to know the organization, building new relationships, getting some credibility in different parts of the world. There's a lot of upside for this.
Right. And it goes the empowerment of these people. Educate, engage, empower, and then go global, think local.
Yes.
Because that's going to be your survivor tips right there.
And don't just think you're local, think everybody's local.
Right.
So it's think
that's
local,
right.
Think local times 10, think global times
We
1.
had remote learning centers at one point in my career way back. And someone in Hong Kong said, we don't know why you call it remote because it's right here. And we're like, oh, so we did training centers. We spelled it the European way. We're like, all right, let's really jump out. So that was about 10, 12 years ago, but what a learning that was, you know. Like,
that's absolutely classic, isn't it? Let's look at everything from our perspective.
It's remote to me. I'm here.
Remote workers and hey, wait a minute, right now, out of all of this. Thank you very much. That's not very good.
That was good.
I'm very upset by that.
And laugh at your failures, right? You share it. Because people will be like, well, if they did that, who knows? Maybe we've done stuff like that. But share it. Don't hide that stuff, you know.
So if we begin to sum up, you know, the key messages are that there's a lot of prep work and a lot of stuff you need to do around the actual event. It's not all just about get this stuff translated, wallop it out there, is it?
Right. No. And we're actually currently even working on a framework, an international think tank framework for putting things globally out there. And it's not near there, but that's something we can maybe even post up where folks can see this and start sharing and start getting, once again, let's, you know, practice what we preach here. Let's get everybody's buy-in that maybe we wouldn't be able to see at an event, but let's see what are they doing in Asia? What are they doing in Australia? How does this work?
Absolutely. Second tip is listen. Listen to people, don't just tell them. Third tip is experiment. Make sure that everything you do is tested locally. Fourth tip is be aware of the cultural issues, and they are all surmountable. but at least be aware of them. And I suppose fifthly, when you make mistakes, just acknowledge those, laugh at yourself, and move on.
And don't do them twice.
And don't do them twice. Learn from your mistakes. Hey, what a great point to end. So, Sharon, it's been great talking to you. Thanks so much for sharing those.
Thank you.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.